His alpha boss tried to touch me at a work party while my husband looked away. 5 minutes later, both were in handcuffs. You look absolutely stunning tonight, Sarah. James Harrison's breath reeked of expensive scotch as he cornered me near the emergency exit of the Metropolitan Hotel's grand ballroom. The annual Vertex Technologies holiday party was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a deceptively warm glow over the gathering of 300 employees. I clutched my champagne flute tighter, my other hand discreetly pressing the recording device in my clutch through the fabric. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I should really get back to Michael. My emerald green cocktail dress suddenly felt too revealing, despite its modest cut. Always so formal, he chuckled, taking another step closer. The potted palm behind me prevented any retreat. I've told you countless times to call me James. After all, we've worked so closely together these past 3 years. His hand reached out, fingers trailing along my bare arm. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Let's dive in. Across the room, I caught Michael's eye. My husband of 3 years was engaged in animated conversation with the head of IT, seemingly oblivious to my situation. But I knew better. We'd choreographed this moment down to the smallest detail. You've had too much to drink, Mr. Harrison, I said firmly, trying to step sideways. His arm shot out, blocking my path. Sarah, 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 he crooned, leaning in closer. You know, you've always been my favorite. The way you command that boardroom, those quarterly presentations. His hand moved to my waist. Such power in such a delicate package. My heart raced, but not from fear. Everything was falling into place exactly as planned. 3 years of documented harassment, dozens of inappropriate emails, and countless witness statements had led to this moment. But Harrison needed to cross one final line. I have a room upstairs, he whispered, his fingers digging into my hip. Your husband's busy networking. He'll never even notice you're gone. I made a show of looking past his shoulder toward Michael. Harrison took the bait, pressing me further into the shadowed corner. No one can see us here, Sarah. Stop fighting what we both know you want. His hand slid lower and I saw Michael discreetly touch his earpiece. The signal. I mentally counted down, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Harrison, I said clearly, my voice steady. Remove your hands from my body immediately. He laughed, the sound harsh and confident. Come on, baby. Don't play hard to get now. I've seen how you look at me in meetings. Those little skirts you wear, the way you... James Harrison, a firm voice cut through his drunken rambling. Step away from Mrs. Chin. 2 plainclothes officers materialized from the crowd, their badges glinting under the chandeliers. Harrison's face contorted in confusion, his alcohol-addled brain struggling to process the sudden shift in power dynamics. What is this? He sputtered, finally releasing my waist. Some kind of joke? Michael appeared beside the officers, no longer playing the role of distracted husband. He pulled out his own badge. Detective Michael Chin, Special Victims Unit. You're under arrest for sexual harassment and attempted assault. The color drained from Harrison's face as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am? James Harrison, CEO of Vertex Technologies, I stated calmly, retrieving my clutch and the recording device within. Annual salary of $4.2 million, 3 vacation homes, and a history of sexual harassment complaints that your company's HR department has systematically buried. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. But what you didn't know is that before I became your director of operations, I spent 7 years as a detective myself. Surprise. The ballroom had fallen silent, 300 employees watching their alpha boss being led away in handcuffs. His Italian leather shoes squeaked against the marble floor as he struggled, his protests growing more desperate with each step. You planned this, he spat, twisting to glare at me. All of it? These 3 years. I smiled, the expression genuine for the first time in months. Consider it a lesson in true power, Mr. Harrison. It's not about being an alpha or asserting dominance. It's about justice. As the officers escorted him toward the exit, Harrison's facade finally cracked completely. I'll ruin you for this, he shouted. You'll never work in this industry again. Actually, Michael stepped forward, his detective badge still visible. We have written testimony from 12 of your former victims. They're all waiting to testify. Your board of directors has already been notified. He checked his watch. I believe they're calling an emergency meeting right about now. I watched as the double doors closed behind them, Harrison's threats fading into the shocked murmurs of the crowd. 3 years of careful planning, of documenting every inappropriate comment, every unwanted touch, every abuse of power. It had all led to this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from our precinct captain. Board members received the evidence package. They're moving to terminate immediately. Well done, both of you. I looked around the ballroom at the faces of my colleagues processing what they'd just witnessed. Some showed shock, others relief, and more than a few women had tears in their eyes. Tomorrow the real work would begin, helping other victims come forward, restructuring the company's harassment policies, rebuilding a corporate culture based on respect rather than fear. But for now, I simply took my husband's hand and squeezed it gently. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Harrison," I whispered to the empty doorway. "I hope you enjoy the party favors." The aftermath of Harrison's arrest left the grand ballroom in chaos. As employees huddled in small groups, whispering and shooting glances my way, I retreated to a quiet corner with Michael. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages from the board of directors, but they could wait. Right now, I needed a moment to process the weight lifting from my shoulders. 3 years of calculated patience finally paying off. "You okay?" Michael squeezed my hand, his detective's eyes scanning my face for any sign of distress. I nodded, thinking back to the day this all began. It wasn't the obvious moments that had set our plan in motion. Not the lingering touches or inappropriate comments. No, it was something far more subtle, a pattern I'd recognized from my years working sex crimes. "Remember that morning meeting 3 months after I started?" I asked Michael, taking a sip of water. The champagne in my glass had long since gone flat. He nodded grimly. "The day you first noticed his pattern with female employees." The memory played out clearly. I was still a junior project manager, eager to prove myself. Harrison had called an early morning meeting, supposedly to discuss quarterly projections. But when I arrived at 7 a.m., I found Lisa from accounting already leaving his office in tears. "He's just very hands-on with his mentoring," she'd mumbled when I asked if she was okay. The same excuse I'd hear dozens of times over the next 3 years. That meeting had been my first real taste of Harrison's tactics. He'd spent 45 minutes discussing my potential, all while gradually moving his chair closer, finding excuses to lean over me to guide my hand on the mouse as we reviewed spreadsheets. "In every department," I said to Michael, watching the party guests start to filter out. He had at least one target. Always someone talented, usually newer employees hungry for advancement. He'd dangle promotions, special projects, one-on-one mentoring sessions. Michael's jaw tightened. And the ones who refused, transferred to dead-end projects, passed over for promotions, or driven to quit. Rebecca in marketing lasted 6 months before she left. Jennifer in legal 8 months. Both brilliant women who deserved better. The pattern had been methodical, predatory. Harrison knew exactly how to select his victims, ambitious women with too much to lose, too much invested in their careers to risk everything by speaking up. He'd build them up professionally while slowly, steadily breaking down their boundaries. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Rachel, my former colleague from SVU. Statement from his executive assistant just came in. "Goes back 15 years, multiple companies. You broke the pattern, Sarah. 15 years. The number hit me hard. How many careers derailed, how many dreams shattered. I thought about the quiet conversations I'd had over the past 3 years. Women who'd come to my office, closing the door behind them, voices trembling as they shared their stories. The worst part, I told Michael, scrolling through the mounting messages, was watching him groom new victims. That summer intern last year? 19 years old, first corporate experience. He scheduled weekly career guidance meetings with her. Always after hours, always in his office. That's when we started gathering video evidence, Michael reminded me, his voice tight with controlled anger. I nodded. The hidden cameras had been his idea. Carefully placed to cover Harrison's office, the adjacent conference room, the secluded corners of the executive floor. Every lingering touch, every inappropriate advance, every instance of cornered employees trying to maintain professional smiles while shrinking away from his presence. All documented. "Miss Chin." A timid voice interrupted our conversation. It was Amy from Human Resources, her eyes red-rimmed. I need to apologize. We knew. The HR department, we knew, but he had us bury the complaints. Threaten the victims with legal action if they went public. I should have. I stood, taking her trembling hands in mine. It wasn't your fault, Amy. He had everyone trapped in his web. But now we need your help. There are more victims out there, women who deserve justice. Will you help us reach them? She straightened, wiping her eyes. All the buried files. I kept copies. Everything. Every complaint, every settlement, every NDA he forced them to sign. I can have it on your desk first thing tomorrow. Send it directly to this email. Michael handed her his card. The DA's office will want to review everything. As Amy hurried away, I looked around the now empty ballroom. The elaborate decorations seemed hollow now, like the facade of professional success Harrison had hidden behind. On Monday everything would change. The press would break the story, more victims would come forward, and the carefully crafted image of the alpha boss would crumble completely. Sarah, Michael's voice drew me back to the present. There's something else you should know. While you were keeping him distracted these past months, we found irregularities in the company finances. Large payments to offshore accounts, all coinciding with dates former employees left the company. I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. Of course, hush money paid with company funds. Harrison hadn't just been a predator. He'd been stealing from the very company he claimed to lead. Send it to forensic accounting, I said, gathering my clutch. It's time everyone saw his true colors. All of them. As we left the ballroom, I paused at the threshold. 3 years of watching, documenting, and planning had culminated in this night. But it wasn't just about Harrison anymore. It was about every woman who'd sat in his office, every career he'd tried to destroy, every life he'd impacted. The real work was just beginning. The week leading up to the holiday party had been a carefully orchestrated dance. Every detail had to be perfect, every contingency planned for. As Michael and I left the ballroom that night, my mind drifted back to the events that had brought us to this moment. Did everything go exactly as planned? I asked, loosening my grip on my clutch for the first time in hours. My fingers were stiff from maintaining constant contact with the recording device. Michael nodded, guiding me toward the hotel's service elevator, a deliberate choice to avoid running into any lingering party guests. The surveillance team caught everything. From the moment he walked into the party, we had eyes on him. The drinking pattern was exactly what our profile suggested. 3 days earlier, we'd had our final planning meeting with the SVU team. Harrison's predictable nature had been his undoing. Every holiday party followed the same pattern. He'd start with scotch, exactly 3 glasses over the first 2 hours. Just enough to loosen his inhibitions while maintaining plausible deniability. The team managed to document 7 separate incidents before he approached you, Michael continued as we descended to the parking level. Unwanted touching of 2 junior associates, inappropriate comments to an intern, cornering the new marketing director by the coat check. But we needed something more definitive. I leaned against the elevator wall, remembering how we'd positioned our pieces on the board. Tell me about the setup. We had plainclothes officers stationed at every exit. Detective Rodriguez posed as a bartender, keeping track of his drinks. Officer Chin, no relation, he smiled slightly, was the coat check attendant who accidentally spilled a drink on his regular escape route to the north stairwell. The elevator doors opened to the secure parking level where our team waited. Detective Sarah Martinez, my former partner from SVU, stepped forward with an evidence bag. Your clutch, Sarah. We'll need it for processing. I handed over the bag containing the recording device. How many victims came forward tonight? 17 so far, she replied, carefully sealing the evidence. Once they saw him in cuffs, it was like a dam breaking. We have officers taking statements upstairs right now. That tip line we set up? It's already ringing off the hook. Michael pulled out his phone, showing me a series of text messages. The board's emergency session just ended. They've voted unanimously to terminate him effective immediately. They're particularly interested in those offshore accounts we found. I thought about the mountain of evidence we'd accumulated. What about the security footage from his office? All preserved, Detective Martinez confirmed. The IT team you cleared gave us access to 3 years of backup servers. Every deleted email, every modified document, every private meeting, it's all there. The weight of the past 3 years seemed to press down on me. I remembered every woman who'd come to my office, sharing their stories in whispered conversations. The intern who'd quit last summer, the executive assistant who'd transferred to a lesser position just to escape his attention, the promising young lawyer who'd left the industry entirely. Sarah, Michael's voice was gentle, we found something else in the financial records. Those offshore accounts. They weren't just for hush money. There's evidence of serious financial fraud. The SEC is getting involved. I wasn't surprised. Men like Harrison, who thought they were above the basic rules of human decency, rarely limited their transgressions to one area. The same sense of entitlement that made him think he could prey on his employees likely extended to his handling of company finances. Mrs. Chin? A young officer approached, tablet in hand. We need your official statement about tonight's incident. And, there's something else you should see. The tablet displayed an email chain, retrieved from Harrison's secured account. My blood ran cold as I read the messages. He'd been planning to force me out of the company, manufacturing evidence of incompetence, setting up a situation that would have made it impossible for me to find work in the industry again. When? Asked, my voice tight. He scheduled the board meeting for next Tuesday, the officer replied. He had a whole dossier prepared, claiming you'd been embezzling funds, falsifying reports. Michael's hand found mine, squeezing gently. He never saw you coming. I thought about Harrison in his holding cell, probably still believing he could buy or threaten his way out of this situation. He didn't realize that his carefully constructed world was already crumbling. By morning the press would have the story. His reputation, his career, his freedom, all gone. Detective Martinez, I turned to my former partner, make sure every victim knows they'll have protection. Harrison has friends in high places. Some of them might try to salvage their own reputations by discrediting his accusers. She nodded grimly. We've already arranged for victim advocacy services. The DA's office is assigning a special task force. This is going to be big, Sarah. You've opened the floodgates. Looking around at the assembled team, officers, detectives, evidence technicians, I felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just about my personal revenge. It was about justice for every woman Harrison had ever harassed, threatened, or assaulted. It was about changing a corporate culture that had protected predators for too long. Let's finish this, I said, straightening my shoulders. We have statements to take. As the evidence team processed the final statements from the holiday party, Detective Martinez pulled me aside into a quiet corner of the parking garage. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her face as she opened a thick case file. Remember this? She asked, sliding out a photograph. It showed a younger me in my detective's uniform, standing outside a different corporate office building. The Davidson case 7 years ago. That's where this really started, wasn't it? I touched the photograph gently. Thomas Davidson, another CO, another predator who'd walked away from multiple allegations because his victims were too scared to testify. That case had changed everything. It was why I'd left the force to go undercover in the corporate world. When you first called me about Harrison 3 years ago, Martinez continued, I thought you were crazy. Leaving SVU to play the long game? But you saw something in his pattern that we missed. The similarity was unmistakable, I replied, remembering my first week at Vertex Technologies. The way he tested boundaries, how he isolated victims, the careful grooming process. It was Davidson all over again, but this time I could do something about it. Michael joined us, carrying 3 cups of coffee from the all-night diner across the street. Tell her about the recruitment process, he suggested, handing us each a cup. I smiled, remembering the elaborate chess game that had brought me to Harrison's attention. I created the perfect target profile. Advanced degrees, impressive resume, but with just enough vulnerability in my background to make me seem exploitable. The kind of ambitious woman Harrison couldn't resist. The interview process had been rigorous, 6 rounds of increasingly senior meetings. I'd played my part perfectly, demonstrating competence while carefully maintaining an air of slight insecurity. Harrison had practically salivated at the combination. The hardest part, Michael added, was establishing her backstory. We had to go deep, fabricated references, carefully crafted digital footprint, even a few strategic gaps in her employment history that would make her seem desperate to succeed here. Martinez pulled out more documents from her file. And that's when we started building the network. Every victim who'd left Vertex, every harassment claim that had been buried, every witness to his behavior. We tracked them all down. 37 women over 15 years, I said quietly, reading the latest victim count from Martinez's notes. But they were all too scared to come forward. NDAs, threatened lawsuits, career suicide. Harrison had every angle covered. Until now. The plan had required infinite patience. For 3 years I'd played the role of the rising star, accepting Harrison's mentorship while documenting every inappropriate comment, every unwanted touch, every threat veiled as career advice. Michael, posing as my supportive but oblivious husband, had attended company functions, making sure Harrison saw him as no threat. The technology was crucial, Michael explained, pulling up schematics on his tablet. We couldn't risk standard recording devices. Harrison regularly swept his office for bugs. So we developed something new, something his security team wouldn't know to look for. The recording device in my clutch was a prototype, developed specifically for this operation. Undetectable by standard sweeps, it had captured every damning word, every unwanted advance, all synchronized with the hidden cameras we'd planted throughout the executive floor. But the real breakthrough, I added, came from the victims themselves. Once they knew they weren't alone, that someone was finally fighting back, they started talking. Each woman knew a piece of the puzzle. The offshore accounts, the falsified HR reports, the systematic cover-ups. Martinez nodded, spreading out more photographs. Like this one, his private elevator. Seemed innocent enough until we realized he was using it to trap women in enclosed spaces. Or his executive retreat program, carefully designed to isolate potential victims. The profile fit perfectly, Michael said, pulling up Harrison's background check. Wealthy family, prestigious schools, history of entitled behavior. He genuinely believed he was untouchable. That's why he got sloppy. I thought about the moment everything had clicked into place. It was during last year's holiday party. I watched him corner Jessica from accounting. Same pattern, same predatory approach. But this time we were ready. Every security camera, every witness statement, every piece of evidence carefully preserved. The task force couldn't believe how deep it went, Martinez added. Financial fraud, corporate espionage, even blackmail. Harrison wasn't just a predator. He was running a criminal enterprise right under everyone's noses. Michael checked his phone as more updates poured in. SEC investigation is officially launched. They're freezing his assets, including those offshore accounts. The board is cooperating fully. They're terrified of the liability. And the victims? I asked, thinking of all the women who'd trusted me with their stories. Coming forward in waves, Martinez confirmed. The DA's office has set up a special hotline. Women from his previous companies are calling in too. This is bigger than Vertex. It's going to expose a pattern across the entire industry. I stood up, gathering the scattered files. The parking garage was quieter now, most of the evidence team having moved upstairs to process the party scene. In a few hours the sun would rise on a very different Vertex Technologies. You know what happens next, Martinez said, not really a question. I nodded. Phase 1, gathering evidence and making the arrest, was complete. But Phase 2 would be even more challenging. Ensuring justice for every victim, dismantling the system that had protected Harrison and making sure this never happened again. We're ready, I assured her, thinking of the years of preparation that had led to this moment. This was always about more than just Harrison. It's about changing the whole game. Dawn was breaking over the city skyline as we finally left the hotel's parking garage. The evidence collection was complete, but the night wasn't over. We had one more trap to spring. Harrison might have been in custody, but his network of enablers was still in place, and they'd be working frantically to contain the damage. It started, Michael said, showing me his phone. Multiple text messages were flooding in from our surveillance team. Harrison's lawyer made 3 calls from the precinct. Want to guess who to? I smiled grimly. Judge Matthews, I assume? And probably District Attorney Collins. Both, Michael confirmed. Plus a call to someone with an offshore number. Our tech team is tracing it now. The elevator carried us to the hotel's penthouse level where we'd set up our command center. As the doors opened, we were greeted by a hive of activity. Federal agents, forensic accountants, and cybercrime specialists all working in concert. Right on schedule, Agent Wilson from the FBI's white-collar crime division greeted us. Harrison's associates took the bait. They're accessing the hidden accounts exactly as we predicted. I walked over to the wall of monitors displaying real-time surveillance data. Harrison's arrest wasn't just about bringing down one predator. It was about exposing the entire system that protected men like him. We'd spent months laying this trap, creating a trail of digital breadcrumbs that would lead his conspirators to incriminate themselves. "Show me the judges," I requested, and Wilson pulled up a series of surveillance feeds. 3 separate courtrooms where Harrison had buried previous cases, 3 judges who'd consistently ruled in his favor. Now we watched as they scrambled to cover their tracks, unaware that every keystroke, every phone call, every deleted file was being recorded. Judge Matthews just accessed his offshore account. A cyber analyst called out. "He's attempting to move funds." And there it is. The transaction history we planted. Michael squeezed my shoulder. This had been his idea. Seeding Harrison's network with seemingly secure information that would lead his allies to reveal themselves. When Harrison was arrested, they'd all rush to hide their connections to him, accessing accounts and communications that would prove their complicity. D. Collins just called an emergency meeting with his staff, another agent reported. "Our inside source confirms he's ordering all Harrison-related cases to be pulled from the archives." "Perfect," Martinez said, joining us at the monitors. "That gives us probable cause for a warrant. Judge Rodriguez is standing by. She's been waiting years to expose corruption in her courthouse." The plan was unfolding like a perfectly choreographed dance. Each person in Harrison's protection network, convinced they were covering their tracks, was actually stepping right into our trap. The same arrogance that had made them feel untouchable was now ensuring their downfall. Mrs. Chin, a young FBI analyst, approached with a tablet. "You need to see this. We just intercepted an email from Harrison's executive assistant to his private server." The email contained a list, dates, names, and hotel rooms. 3 years of business meetings that were anything but business. The assistant had been maintaining Harrison's private record of victims, thinking it would help him track potential threats. Instead, she'd given us a roadmap of his crimes. "Send it to victim services," I instructed. "Every woman on that list needs to be contacted and offered protection. Some of them might not even know they were targeted." Michael's phone buzzed again. The SEC team just breached Harrison's home office. They found a hidden safe with physical evidence. Photos, NDAs, what looks like blackmail material. "He kept trophies," I said quietly, remembering similar discoveries from my SVU days. "They always keep trophies." The sun was fully up now, casting long shadows through the penthouse windows. In boardrooms across the city, Harrison's business associates would be arriving to find federal agents waiting. In courthouse offices, judges would discover their confidential communications had been compromised. In offshore banks, accounts would be frozen as international authorities moved in. "Sarah," Martinez called from across the room, "Harrison's requesting a deal. He's offering to name names." I shook my head. "No deals. We already have everything we need. Let him face every charge, let him see how it feels to be powerless." A cheer went up from the cyber team station. On their screens, a cascade of transactions was lighting up, Harrison's entire network scrambling to hide their connections, each desperate action providing more evidence for prosecutors. "Final count," Agent Wilson announced, reading from a report. 17 judges under investigation, 3 district attorneys, 6 corporate lawyers, and board members from 12 different companies. The governor's office just called. They're appointing a special prosecutor. I thought about all the women who'd trusted me with their stories, who'd lived in fear while we built our case. Today they would wake up to news reports of Harrison's arrest. They would know they weren't alone, that their voices had been heard, that justice was finally coming. "Mrs. Chin," a technician called out, "Harrison's lawyer is holding a press conference in an hour. Should we release the evidence files to the media?" I looked at Michael, then at Martinez. 3 years of undercover work, of documenting every crime, of building an airtight case. It had all led to this moment. "Release everything," I decided. "Let the world see exactly who James Harrison really is." The press conference was a feeding frenzy. Every major network had cameras rolling as Harrison's high-powered attorney, Maxwell Sterling, stepped up to the podium outside the courthouse. His usual smooth confidence was noticeably shaken. He'd just learned that his own offshore accounts had been compromised. My client, Mr. James Harrison, categorically denies all allegations. Sterling began, but his rehearsed speech was interrupted by a cascade of notifications on every reporter's phone. The evidence files had just dropped. From our command center in the hotel penthouse, we watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Reporters scrolling through documents live on air, their expressions shifting from professional neutrality to shocked disbelief. Play the audio, I instructed our media team. Harrison's voice filled the press room through dozens of phones. You know how this works, sweetheart. Your career, your future, it all goes through me. Now why don't you close that door? Sterling's face went pale as he realized what was happening. The carefully crafted narrative he'd prepared was crumbling in real time. Mr. Sterling, a reporter called out. We have documents showing you personally helped suppress 17 harassment complaints. Would you care to comment? Another voice. Is it true that you maintained separate accounts for hush money payments? And another. Can you explain these emails discussing witness intimidation? The attorney fled the podium, pursued by a wall of cameras and questions. But the real show was happening inside the courthouse. Harrison's requesting another meeting, Martinez announced, hanging up her phone. He's realized what we've done. Shall we? Michael adjusted his tie. Let's go show that alpha boss exactly what he's up against. The holding cell area was cold and sterile, a far cry from Harrison's luxurious corner office. He sat at the metal table in his rumpled Tom Ford suit, the handcuffs a stark contrast to his French cuffs and gold links. You psychological bitch, he spat as I entered with Martinez and Michael. You think you can destroy everything I've built? I sat down calmly, placing a thick file on the table. Actually, Mr. Harrison, you destroyed it yourself. We just documented the process. I'll beat this, he snarled. I always beat this. Every accusation, every complaint. I'm untouchable. Michael stepped forward, his detective badge gleaming. Not anymore. Your network is gone. Judge Matthews was arrested 20 minutes ago. DA Collins is being questioned by the FBI. Even your offshore bankers are cooperating to save themselves. I opened the file, laying out photographs one by one. Remember her? Sarah Johnson, your first victim at Meridian Corp 2008. You had her blacklisted from the industry. She's outside right now ready to testify. Another photo. Amanda Chin, no relation. Vertex Technologies 2019. You threatened to deport her parents if she spoke up. Immigration Services has already confirmed their legal status. More photos, more names, more lives he'd tried to destroy. With each one, I watched his arrogance crack further. Everything you did to protect yourself, I continued, every person you bribed, every victim you silenced, it all led back to this moment. You created a perfect record of your own crimes. Harrison lunged across the table, but the handcuffs brought him up short. 2 guards instantly had him restrained. You were undercover? He demanded. The whole time. The promotions, the projects were earned. I cut him off. Every presentation, every success, every milestone, that was all real. I didn't need to fake competence, Mr. Harrison. I just had to document your reaction to it. Martinez placed a laptop on the table, playing security footage from his office. Dozens of incidents, all carefully catalogued. The cameras were in there for 3 years. Every meeting, every private conversation, we have it all. Impossible, he whispered. My security team sweeps. We're on our payroll, Michael finished. Along with your IT department, your private security, even your chauffeur. Turns out people don't stay loyal when they see who you really are. The realization finally hit him. There would be no escape this time. No judges to bribe, no victims to silence, no evidence to bury. We found the videos, I said quietly, watching him freeze. The ones you kept in your private server. Did you really think they made you powerful? They just proved what a predator you are. Harrison slumped in his chair, his alphic persona evaporating. What do you want? Justice, I replied simply. Not just for me, not just for the women at Vertex, but for every person you've ever harmed. You're going to watch as everything you built crumbles, as every person you hurt steps forward to testify. Michael checked his phone. Board of Directors just released their statement. They're cooperating fully with investigators and announcing a $100 million victim compensation fund. Your reputation is gone, Martinez added. Every business deal, every award, every achievement, it will all be overshadowed by who you really are. In a few hours your face will be on every news channel and everyone will know. The great James Harrison is nothing but a common predator. I stood up, gathering the photos. Enjoy prison, Mr. Harrison. I hear they have a special welcome for men who prey on women. As we left him in his cell, I could hear him calling for his lawyer, demanding phone calls, trying desperately to regain control. But his power was gone, stripped away not by force, but by patience and determination. Outside the courthouse, the media circus was growing. Time to face the cameras, to show other victims that they weren't alone, that justice was possible. Ready? Michael asked, taking my hand. I looked up at the clear morning sky. Ready. Let's show them what real power looks like. The morning sun was blinding as we stepped out of the courthouse. A wall of cameras and microphones greeted us, but they weren't what caught my attention. Behind the press corps stood dozens of women, former Vertex employees, survivors from Harrison's previous companies, witnesses who'd been silenced for years. They were here to reclaim their stories. Mrs. Chin, reporters called out. Did you plan this from the beginning? Was your entire career at Vertex an undercover operation? I approached the microphones, Michael's steady presence beside me. My work at Vertex Technologies was genuine. Every project completed, every goal achieved. That was real. What wasn't real was James Harrison's image as a respected CEO. Today we revealed the truth about who he really is. Detective Chin, another reporter turned to Michael. How long has the department been investigating Harrison? This investigation began 3 years ago, Michael replied, but its roots go deeper. This case has exposed systematic abuse of power across multiple corporations. What happened at Vertex isn't unique. It's just the first domino to fall. A young woman pushed through the crowd. Jessica from accounting, one of Harrison's recent targets. Sarah, she called out, tears in her eyes. Thank you. We all knew, but we were so scared. Thank you for believing us. More women stepped forward, creating a circle of support around us. The cameras caught it all, the tears, the hugs, the moment of solidarity. This was the image that would lead the evening news. Not Harrison in handcuffs, but his victims standing together, unafraid. The board of directors has called an emergency shareholders meeting, Martinez announced, checking her phone. They're voting to appoint Sarah as interim CEO. The reporters erupted with questions, but I raised a hand for silence. My role at Vertex isn't over, but it's changing. We're not just removing one predator. We're transforming the entire corporate culture that protected him. Back in the command center, the evidence of that transformation was already visible. The Victim Compensation Fund had grown to $150 million as more shareholders pledged support. HR departments at companies across the country were reviewing their harassment policies, afraid of being the next Vertex. Latest numbers, Agent Wilson reported. 22 judges under investigation, 5 district attorneys implicated, and corporate executives from 15 different companies facing charges. Harrison's network ran deeper than we thought. Michael pulled up the latest surveillance feeds. His conspirators are turning on each other. Everyone's scrambling to make deals, offering evidence against their former friends. The whole house of cards is collapsing. I watched the monitors showing Harrison's former allies being led away in handcuffs, judges, lawyers, executives who'd enabled his behavior for years. Each arrest sent ripples through the business world, forcing other companies to confront their own toxic cultures. Sarah, Martinez called me over to her station. You need to see this. The screen showed emails pouring in from around the country. Women sharing their own stories of harassment, inspired by what we'd done at Vertex. Law firms were offering pro bono services to victims. Support groups were forming spontaneously. A movement was building. It's not just about Harrison anymore, I realized. We've created a blueprint for fighting back. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Victim advocates arrived to help process statements. Federal agents coordinated raids on Harrison's other properties. Forensic accountants uncovered more hidden accounts, each one revealing new crimes. By evening I found myself back in my corner office at Vertex, now seeing it with new eyes. The blinds were open wide, letting in the sunset. Harrison's office across the way was being searched by federal agents. His alpha boss empire dismantled piece by piece. Ready for tomorrow? Michael asked, bringing me a fresh coffee. The press is calling it the biggest corporate scandal since Enron. I looked at the stack of files on my desk. New harassment policies to implement, corporate structures to rebuild, a company culture to transform. This is just the beginning. Other companies are watching. What we do next will set the standard. My phone buzzed with a message from Martinez. Harrison's taking a plea deal. Full confession testimony against his network. Facing 25 to life. He finally realized he's powerless, Michael observed. I thought about the future, not just for Vertex but for every workplace where power had been abused. No, he always was. Real power isn't about dominance or fear. It's about justice, about making change that matters. A knock at my door revealed Amy from HR clutching more files. Mrs. Chin, Sarah. We found more victims from before your time here. They want to come forward. Tell them they're not alone anymore, I said. And Amy? Start drafting a new corporate ethics policy. One with real teeth. As night fell over the city, I stood at my window, watching lights come on in offices across the skyline. In each building there were probably others like Harrison, others who thought their power made them untouchable. But there were also people like us, watching, documenting, waiting for the right moment to act. Ready to go home? Michael asked softly. I gathered my things, thinking about all we'd accomplished and all that was still to come. Yes. But tomorrow we start again. There are more battles to fight. As we left Vertex Technologies that night, I saw our reflection in the lobby's marble walls. Not just husband and wife but partners in justice. That Alpha Bosk was gone, but his fall would echo through boardrooms and courtrooms for years to come. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning.